is Mental Chain, and welcome to another Is It Worth the Grind video. Today we are looking at the Type 5 Heavy tank, the Japanese Tier 10 Heavy. So is this thing worth the grind? No. Why? Because fuck you, that's why. This tank is terrible, the line is terrible. Well, the line is terrible, it's like really obnoxious to play, but let's look at the tech tree to begin with. I've done videos of all the tanks from Tier 6 up. But let's just have a quick look through these. So the tier 6, you get a OI, pretty decent tier 6 heavy. The common theme with these is that they're rather OP when they're top tier and pretty shitty when they're not. I have not played it with this gun, but it should not be too bad. 175 pen at tier 6 is pretty healthy. The DPM is not the greatest, but it's definitely serviceable. But where it really shines is this 15 centimeter derp. At tier 6 there's a lot of things you can pen this. You can also use AP on this reasonably effectively. Don't really need that heat, but you can pen quite a lot of things with this. The accuracy obviously is shit, the aiming time is shit, but it's not as bad as the KV2's derp, so you can actually land some pretty neat shots with this one, and the tank is in general is one of the best ones in the line. A lot of people like the tier 5 as well, but I haven't played it, but I imagine the tier 5 tank with an armor would be quite OP, as most tier 5s like that are. At tier 6, at tier 7 that is, we get the Oni. The gun choices are there again. You have a slightly better 10 centimeter gun with 190 pen, but in my opinion, this gun isn't really worth using. You lose DPM, well, kinda sorta lose DPM over the stock gun. So the DPM on this is mind-bogglingly bad with the 10 centimeter. So I played it with this gun. To be honest, the tier 7 was definitely one of the, well, it was definitely worse than the tier 6 and the tier 8. The howitzer is still reasonably effective at this tier, but it's not as good. Obviously, the rest of the modules, it's kind of funny that these engines get shared by all of them, so they don't really get any engine upgrades, so you don't really have to worry about that. But again, gun-wise, I'd use this gun. You can try this one as well. You need to unlock it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. At tier 8, we get the Ho. Pretty decent this one. I used the tier 10 centimeter on this one. It doesn't get any gold ammo, but 250 pen is decent enough for tier 8 heavy tank. The DPM on this skyrockets from the tier 7. And the armor is better as well. You can try the howitzer, it actually word stab, and so it's not as inaccurate, but the DPM when you're top tier on this gun will be pretty bad. When you're bottom tier, the howitzer on most occasions performs slightly better than the 10 centimeter, but if you just find the targets you can pen with this gun, then you should be fine. Anyways, again, engine is the same as I think, does the tier 6 get the same engine? Yep. So you get the same engine from the tier 6. At tier 9 we get the Type 4 Heavy. Pretty shitty tank in its own right. You get a new selection of guns. This gun is mind-bogglingly bad. Terrible DPM, just terrible. Look at it. Less than 4 rounds a minute for 450 damage. Absolutely trash. Terrible gun. Pain in the ass to grind to the 14 centimeter. The 14 centimeter gets even less rate of fire, but at least the DPM is slightly higher. Still really shitty, and the tank is really slow at top speed, being 20. So yeah, this tank is definitely, if not worse than the tier 10, then as bad. So once we get, well, since we have talked through the grind, let's talk about the tier 10 now. And here's the Type 5 in the collision model. So let's look at the armor before we do anything else. Not really sure why there's holes here. I guess that's how the model works. There's a side skirt there, obviously. So first of all, you have a 260 frontal. It's flat, so it's 260. So for heat, this is 260. And how much pen does all heat ammo has? More than 300. So fuck you and your 260 frontal plate. It's reasonably effective against AP though, obviously, as the armor gets down to 250 in completely flat, like on this parts, because it is 250 here, but you don't really want to shoot this with AP if you can avoid it, as obviously there isn't enough weak spots, or the turret isn't weak enough. The turret is kind of similar, 260, slightly more angle this time though, so it's even worse to shoot the turret than the hull, but with the heat it's all fucking paper anyway, so it doesn't really matter. The gun mantlet is something you don't really want to shoot at, as again, as there's a bit more angle to it. Luckily though for you, there is the cupola, so this turret is worse than the E5, but this tank goes 25. So yeah, you got a cupola. It's not like 100% pen, as it still is pretty damn thick at 210, but if you get it in any kind of flat angle, well, it's kind of hard to fucking see. This tank is too big for this model viewer. So if you get it in this kind of angle, like 200 tier 10 guns can pen it on the upper part here, and if they get it in reasonably flat areas, these things don't really seem like weak spots, so I wouldn't really go bother aiming at them. But there is more. You can go and shoot through these things as well. You obviously have to shoot quite close to the actual turret, so you actually pen, kind of similar to the E75's turret. You can pen these tanks through these ears as well. The side armor this time is 140. On the lower part it is 35 spaced and 105, so the sides are still reasonably weak, and you have these shoulder plates again, which are terrible when you try to side scrape. So side scraping isn't very all that much effective in this thing. I mean, it's still obviously as always better than getting tracked, and this tank is like, you can see how far the turret is from the front of the track, so you have to peek around the corners really far to get any shots. So side scraping still is better than not side scraping, but it isn't great because of this shoulder plate for sure. The side of the turret is pretty healthy, 210. The back of it is 200. So you can get some bounces here, especially if you have it angled. It's not that common to bounce people from the back of your turret. The hull though is not as good as some of the lower tiers, with only being 150. So don't expect to bounce a lot from your back. Unlike the tier 6s and 7s had like pretty much the same armor all around. This is not the case anymore. That being said, I'm pretty sure we're getting ready to go into the game. So the game we're playing is on South Coast. Pretty light here. Well, pretty light. It's not even that light. It's around, well, 6 tier 10s in the game, and the rest of the teams are pretty much tier 9. So not the lightest matchmaking there is. One thing I forgot to mention, the gun depression on the tank is 10 degrees all around apart from the front corners, and I believe right at the back it's also 9. So the gun depression is usual 10 for these Japanese heavy tanks, so that is not too bad. And let's now talk about the rest of the stats before we get into too much action. So I'm going to be comparing the Type 5 with the other two super heavies at tier 10, the Mouse and the E100. So we start off with 2800 hit points, which is pretty damn healthy. It's slightly less than the Mouse, but at least it's more than the E100. Speed limit forwards 25, more than Mouse is 20, less than E100 is 30. Speed limit backwards 10 kilometers an hour. Mouse E100 gets 15, which is actually quite noticeable and annoying. Load limit is 160 tons, slightly heavier than the E100. Well, it's quite a bit heavier than the E100. The weight of this tank is actually 150 tons, while the E100 is 130. The Mouse is 188. The armor you already saw. Engine power 1200. SEMS on the E100 much lighter, well, much shittier engine than on the Mouse. And this tank actually has the worst power to rate from all the tanks. Mouse actually has the best power to weight, which might seem weird, but you know, the top speed on the Mouse kind of fucks it over. Traverse speed 22 degrees, same as on the E100. Mouse gets fucked with 15. Terrain resistance is worse than on the E100, but better, well, the same as on the Mouse. Like, it's really similar. There's no really big difference. There's not really a big difference there. Fire chance 20% bigger than on the Mouse and the E100 by quite a bit. View range 400, as you would imagine. Turret traverse 16 between the Mouse and the E100 again. And when we come to the gun, it's 600 alpha damage. 249 pen with the AP. Premium AP has 280, which isn't all that great for premium ammo. Stock DPM is 2034. Slightly better than on the Mouse, but worse than on the E100. The reload time you can get around like 16 seconds with the right equipment. Accuracy 0.4, aiming time 2.5. Again, between the Mouse and the E100, with the Mouse's gun being the more accurate one. And that is pretty much all the stats we needed to go through. So this game has been pretty standard for the Type 4 so far, taking damage from gold shooting Eastern E5s. The second people see this tank, they immediately load gold, and can't really blame them. This tank doesn't have obvious frontal weak spots, and the cupola for low pen guns like on the Eastern E5 will be tricky to pen as well. But yeah, you could see the gold ammo just flat out chews through your front. The most important thing for me here was to just put up pressure and use my hit points as a resource. That's pretty much what it comes down to. You cannot angle this armor against heat whilst you can the mouse, so you just are stuck here with a bunch of hit points and a really slow heavy tank with not that much armor against heat. So use your hit points well and you will be able to do damage in return. And the obvious reason this game ended up being good is because there was no arty in this game. Whenever there's arty in the game, your first priority is not to get shot by it, which means that you either need to play passive or you need to just try to find any kind of solid cover and sit behind it the entire game and have a long and boring game. But hey, arty is good for the game, right? Pretty shitty low roll here to not finish off the 1390, and now the enemies are pushing around us, which obviously is bad for me and our team as well. The IS-7, I probably will push forwards to support him, as I can't take those medium zone range as long as I can see them, and the IS-7 is going to actually push in there, which might be quite problematic for us. When it comes to the equipment you use on this, it's pretty standard, super heavy equipment, rammer, vert stabs, and ventilation. You can swap ventilation with the gun link drive if you don't feel confident in the aiming time. You can swap it with optics if you like to play like a moron. It will contribute. Well, if you like to YOLO a lot, the optics might be useful, but other than that, I wouldn't bother. It's a pretty shitty shot there. You can see the serverical lagging behind my mouse cursor, so the shot was pretty bad in the end. I could have aimed higher and actually hit it there easily. The STB-1 is now flanking, which is quite obvious. I'm not going to turn around because I know I cannot turn in time. I started now, but like I should have probably ignored turning to begin with, and I should have, to be honest, drove backwards to block him. I probably would have taken shots from T62A that way though, so maybe this was fine. Now I'm not gonna turn around, angle my hull at the last moment there to bounce that shot, but sadly the reload lets me down and I cannot finish the STB-1 off, and now again have to turn around, and the traverse speed on this, as you can see, is really painful. Could have handled that STA-1 better, and now the IS-7, it's obvious, you have a 62A in front of you, he's 1100 health, something like that, and then you have a 200 STB-1 to your flank shooting you regularly. Who do you look at? Of course the 62A, because you're a silly IS-7 player. The STB-1 is just reckless though, peeking like that, so I managed to pick up the kill on him, and I do block the 62A from being able to shoot the IS-7. Maybe I should not have turned in that much, but at the point, the most important thing was to make the IS-7 live a bit longer, even though probably it's not all that useful for us anyways. And now the crucial problem with STA, with the Type 5 Heavy, you just cannot chase people. As you can see, like as I said, the power to weight is worse than it is on the mouse and the E100, so the climbing speed on this tank is terrible, like absolutely fucking miserable, this tank. And if you have to chase medium tanks, you just know that you're never gonna get to them. And as long as I have this IS-3 buddy with me, I'm not really in great danger, because if the 62A needs to expose himself to one of us, then he probably is going to take enough damage for me to be able to deal with him. But at this point I can shoot the T-30, which is something I should definitely do, and I end up doing as well. Set him on fire and the Type finishes him off, which is great for us. And now I guess I need to go back, as the enemy 1390 is capping. Our 1390 is, I thought he might be silly, but he's actually being really smart with this. He knows that he probably cannot kill the other 1390, so he's waiting as long as he can for us to be able to be closer to the cap after he's dead and reset it. The problem with this is if you fuck up your first shot and you go in a bit too late, you might actually fuck it up. But it seems that he's actually confident, and well played to that guy. He knew that he cannot win, but then again, if he missed that shot, it probably would have been a game over for our team. But yeah, well played to the 1390, waited till the last moment and actually got the reset, so that alone gave us a chance to win this game. But obviously we're in heavy disadvantage with the IS-7 only having 100 health and there being 4 enemies left and me being so far behind. The IS-7 should not have committed this early. She probably should have waited for me as well. And now when he's proxied, he's likely to get sniped in the side if he decides to push, and I'm likely to get spotted by the 62A in the flank as well now. So pretty shitty situation for us in general. I probably should have turned my turret here now to the right, as I should have seen this coming, but I should be able to kill this 140 if I don't fuck this up massively anyways. And I do get to kill him, so at least we have that going for us, which is nice. The 62A still has enough health to take at least 1 shot, and if I roll shitty, even 2. But I cannot really sit here, as the IS-7 he's not resetting the cap. I need to relocate and push into the cap as well. I do take a shot here. Probably, well, it was unfortunate that he shot me, but I should not have stopped there. I should not be spotted anymore, but the IS-7 dies to a fucking 1390 because peeking out frontally to against a 1390 is too hard. So he takes damage here. I need to reset this cap now as it's only 20 seconds and I cannot fuck with the T62A anymore. Have to go in ham and do this as quickly as I can. I'm not gonna take a shot like this with that reload. I need to be certain that I'm gonna shoot him right in the face and do the damage here, and that's exactly what I make sure of here. If he flanks me and shoots gold, he has a 100% chance to pen me. If he isn't shooting gold, I might still be fine, and I guess we're about to find out what ammo he's using. He does ram the 1390 there, that also helped me here a lot. And again, this tank is so big that I can seize over the other 1390 quite easily. And now, as you can see, the 62A is just shooting AP in my cupola, and I have a VK in my ass. I cannot ignore the 62A, so I have to push in for him and try to get out of the VK shots as quickly as I can. He does bounce my ass twice now in a row. The second shot was probably in a bad angle in my tracks. The first shot was just flat out off the ass somewhere. It is obviously, he's shooting the back of my turret, which is one of the only reasons why I'm bouncing these. And I do manage to pen the 62A and he doesn't do anything to me. And now I just need to kill this guy. The VK bounces another shot off my back and the 62A fucks up here big time. I do manage to track him and I'm not sure why he fired there. He doesn't have the gun elevation. I just really need to go forwards, but I get stuck on this rock. Luckily for me, the VK's DPM is terrible as well, and the 62A's position is even worse, probably. So I do pick up the 62A, and this actually looks doable now, as the VK is now a very good player. I should be able to win this fight, especially with this bad pen. Trying to block my cupola with the gun, and he shots HE into my gun. I do pick up a easy shot into his side, and now, like, I should be able to win this fight. Even if he shoots full HE, I should be able to kill him before he kills me. He might switch to AP though, so I need to be careful with this. And my aim is into that little observation port there. As you can see, it's not that hard to hit, and it's better a weak spot than a cupola, as it's more... Well, it's just easier to hit, and now I don't know what he's doing. He didn't pen me, and now I have all the time in the world to reload before him and pick up this last kill, so... Pretty good ending there for me. Really lucky that that VK player was really bad at the game. And here's the end plate. Ace Tanker, 2000 experience, flat steel wall defender, that's Confederate and high caliber, 8000 damage done, picked up 5 kills as well. Obviously ridiculously lucky that the VK was a terrible player and shot the back of my turret there instead of the back of my hull. I would have easily died there if he just, you know, didn't shoot the back of my turret. But regardless, Ace this tank. It took shitload of games to do this, and it definitely does not represent the average game. And the average game in World of Tanks have Artie in it, and any game that has Artie in it, you're going to be the priority target number 1. Good player, bad player, doesn't really matter. So the average game in this tank is pretty damn sad. You can see the kind of things that happen in this game as well. You just get penned by Eastern 5s because everybody shoots gold the second they see this tank. You can bounce some shots, as you saw in the end as well. I bounced some Heat 62A shots, but like he just wasn't aiming at the flat surfaces and was going for track shots with Heat, which is obviously bad. So yeah, the conclusion on the Type 5. When your enemies are too stupid to shoot you in the back of the hull instead of the back of the turret, when your enemies shoot you with Heat in the tracks, when you don't really face a lot of tier 10s, and when there's no Artie, this tank is awesome. It's amazing. It's slow as fuck, so it's still boring to play, but it's amazing. But sadly, those games happen like less than 1 in 100, so in general, this tank is a giant piece of shit. It's slow, it's boring, it has a terrible gun, has terrible DPM, it has flat armor that's super easy to pen with Heat, and everybody shoots Heat. So, is this thing worth the grind? Of course not. Unless you're a masochistic prick. Or just prick. I mean, you deserve to grind this if you're a prick. You just deserve it. But, yeah, the tank is terrible. Do not grind. Stay away. Stay away, you hear? Stay away! Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and I'll see you on the next one.